Welcome to WoodWarped. I'm Joel, and today we're going to take you on a tour through my workshop. This is the maiden voyage of my YouTube channel, and I thought, well, what a better place to start than to do a shop tour. And when I look at all the other shop videos out there on YouTube today, it seems like everybody else does a shop tour because that's what everybody wants to see. So I'm not going to be any different. Let's take you around and show you all the pieces I've got. I guess the first thing I'll say is I didn't buy all this stuff in one day. This is a culmination of things that I've accumulated for umpteen years. I'm a pretty young guy, as you could tell, but I've accumulated this stuff over time. As you see it on the walls, I don't even know why I keep a lot of it. I'm a little bit of a tool hoarder when it comes to things like that. So, but if you have any questions about that, please go ahead and put it in the comments below, and I'll be glad to address, whatever the tool is, and if you have any questions about it, but they're pretty common stuff anyway. So I guess when we think about the heart of any workshop, you got to start with, the heart of the workshop being the table saw. Now I know there's a variety of them out there. There's a variety of brands out there. This one happens to be from a manufacturer, Jet. I think a majority of the woodworking community out there is familiar with who Jet is as a manufacturer. I bought this saw probably almost 19 years ago, which is hard to believe. I've actually gone through one motor on it, which is actually pretty expensive if you've ever had to buy a motor for a table saw. But anyway, it's been a great piece for me. I highly recommend any of their stuff, even though they're not sponsoring this particular channel, but maybe one day they will. But the nice thing I like about it is it's got the wide 54-inch wide table on it, so that gives you an opportunity to put a lot of things there. It's a 10-inch. It's what we would call a left tilt saw. So obviously you crank it. If you're doing an angle cut, it tilts to the left. It came with what they call an X-Acto fence. Now, one of the things when I transitioned through my woodworking history, I guess, if you will, I started off with a radial arm saw, and it was kind of a multi-purpose tool, and it worked okay, and the accuracy was moderately okay. But the thing that I found when I bought a quality piece of equipment like this, and it didn't come cheap, but I've had it for 19 years, and it's really been a great tool over the years. But the accuracy in the more you pay, sometimes the better the quality of the tool. So that's true for woodworking as well. But you can go to Hobo Freight and buy some cheap tools from that place. No disrespect to the hobos out there, but Harbor Freight is one of those manufacturers. You can buy almost any tool at a really low cost, and they may suit you very well. But a table saw, to me, is kind of one of those things. It's kind of your bread and butter. And, really, this thing, once you get it dialed in and you get it calibrated right, you can put it, on 9 1/16 inch cut, and you don't have to check the measurements, and you rely on it, Just like the slide fence over there. You get these things dialed in and you learn to trust them, and they become very accurate and square, and it makes your woodworking frustrations go way down. So this is a beauty. This particular thing, some of you that have a SawStop brand, I actually bought their guard because it had a really nice dust collection system on it. So I kind of bought it. It wasn't that cheap, but you can go and find them online. And then I modified it to put on this saw because it does a great job of dust collection versus the old one that came with the saw. So if you've got a Jet table saw or any table saw, this one is really pretty nice because then you don't have that big articulating arm that hangs over the top, that kind of gets in your way, and those can be kind of expensive as well. But maybe just a thought for some of you guys out there that are looking for a better dust collection piece for your table saw. On here, what you'll see is something called a JESM fence. Now this is a sliding work table, There's a little lock there to keep it from rotating if you want. But this is a nice cross-cut fence. And I bought this, she's probably going on 15 years ago. And I've loved this. This is one of the best investments I've made in my shop. I don't think they make it anymore. I've gone to their website. But again, coming back to the accuracy, it's really been a great addition to this table saw, because I can cut panels that are 30 inches deep and they'll come out nice and square and things of that nature. I think a lot of people build their own sleds, but this particular one, I bought. It's got a really nice fence on it that can actually extend out. I think it goes all the way out to like 48 inches. It's got a nice stop on it here to repeat cuts and things like that. So this is really something that I was really excited about, and I've enjoyed it as part of my table saw for many years. Underneath here, you'll see, if you can get a shot of that, and maybe from this side over here, might be a better on the feed side, is my trusty DeWalt planer. Now, I guess when I watch videos on YouTube myself as a shop enthusiast, or as I say, a guy with a bunch of tools and an opinion, I kind of gauge my own shop by the tools I see in somebody else's shop. So one of the tools that I see in a lot of people's shops is this DeWalt planer. So it makes me feel good that I made the right investment on my planer. It has 3 knives on it for better, smoother cuts. It's got a couple different speeds for feed rates. So if you want to just rough dimension some lumber, or if you want to fine dimension some lumbers, it's great. The blade change on it is extremely simple. Another tool that probably was on a little bit more of the costly side, but in the long run, I've had that for probably 10 years now, and I think they still make that model. So I got to believe that DeWalt probably finds it to be a very popular, hot-selling item anyway. So DeWalt, if you want an endorsement from a guy who loves that tool, I love all my DeWalt tools. I love Milwaukee tools. I love everybody. What can I say? So that's kind of, there. And as you can see, too, when we look at the shop, I didn't talk about it originally, but this is in my basement of my house. This is where my wife puts me. It's roughly 30 feet long, and I think 13 or 15 feet wide. By all stretches, I'm sure a lot of guys that have, or girls that have shops in their houses that are smaller or larger. I've seen some really fantastic ones. I'm pretty fortunate, I think, to have this space, but I still need to optimize it. So I came up with a way to I keep this underneath my table saw. There's some space down there. It does present some challenges periodically where I have to move things out of the way to plane boards, but it's pretty heavy. One thing that translates with woodworking equipment and shop equipment is things are heavy. I don't know, it's got to be 70 pounds, and it's in an awkward spot. Everything in here has so much weight to it. Getting it down here, getting this table saw down here was a real challenge. So if anybody's ever moved a table saw downstairs before, you know what I'm talking about. It's really a challenge. But space optimization in a shop like this is kind of key. And with respect to that, what I tried to do, and I don't think I'm any genius here, but I tried to make everything at the same level. So this top of the table saw is the same height as my workspace here. It's the same height as my counter space here. So when you're spanning big boards, you just lay them out and they lay flat across these areas. Likewise, as we kind of work our way this way, my chop saw, again, the feed, I could span boards across there, feed them through here, and cut them up. I do have another power miter that I have out of this room right now, so, but I do have another one. This one it's a DeWalt, again, DeWalt, call me. I use this primarily for metal type stuff, cutting aluminum, and things. It's got a abrasive wheel that I use on it, but I use my Porter cable miter for woodworking kind of miter cuts and things like that. But I do like that piece. This, as I kind of talk about pieces that I have in my shop, a lot of things that I get off of Craigslist or neighborhood, websites or neighborhood applications. And this particular mortising machine, I bought when I bought my wood lathe. The guy had that there. So if you ever are in the search for equipment and you go to somebody's garage sale, you just got to keep asking the questions if there's anything else that they want to get rid of. And this is one of those bonus buys I got. I don't know how much I'll use a true mortising machine, but the price was right, so I bought it, and I haven't turned it on yet. Actually, I could turn it on. Oh, there we go, it turns on. But I haven't really used it on anything yet. So maybe there'll be an upcoming video where I try to experiment with that a little bit. So I want to work on some mortises on something like that. Working our way this way. Well, when I built this shop, there was actually a fireplace down here with some ZBrick. If some of you remember what ZBrick was, it was paneled. So I might insert a few clips here of what this shop looked like before I remodeled it. But I reframed all the walls. I insulated it. I had it rewired to code. So everything you see here, was part of the build-out process. And didn't all happen in one day. So it looks like it's done, but it's always work in progress. But again, the bandsaw, a rigid bandsaw. I don't even know if Rigid still makes bandsaws, but I picked this one up again on one of the community websites. I think it was Craigslist. I think I could say that on the air here. But again, it was a great buy. It came with this nice roller base. And again, when you're talking about a workshop that has limited space, having this so I could roll it out and do cuts out in the wide open here. Primarily what I do with this, I've used it periodically. It's really handy to have. I did buy, for some of you that have a similar, I think a lot of the bandsaws you see out there are all made by one factory somewhere, probably Bandsaws or Us or something like that. But you'll find that some of these components, like this is a jet fence from a jet bandsaw that I bought, and it actually bolted right onto the same pattern of bolts on this table. It actually works really well. The fence is nice and high on it. So how I use it a lot is for recutting. So if you're gonna take a 1-inch thick board, or 4/4 as they say in the woodworking industry, and you wanna, as versus planing off half of it and putting it in your dust collector, you can cut it down to maybe 3/8, save 1/4 of it for some other project that you have, then mill down the rest. So you aren't creating a whole bunch of sawdust. So resawing, it's a 14-inch high cut. So you can, I believe that's what it was anyway. I don't remember on the manual, but you can get a pretty big cut out of it. Or maybe 14-inch means the table. I don't remember what they said. The only thing I had to do with it was to put new tires on the inside here. These new rubber bands on here to drive it a little bit better. Other than that, it's been it was like brand new when I got it, and it was kind of a steal from that perspective. So great use in the shop. I recommend, again, all this stuff wasn't acquired in one day. So over time, I always just keep looking on Craigslist or those sites, and if I see something that I don't have, I may consider picking it up if I got a little extra coin burning a hole in my pocket. Moving over here to my Delta drill press. Again, another great find. I know it sounds like a broken record. I built the table for it to kind of give you a little bit better work surface. It's just a smaller die cast table underneath that you probably see on most of these drill presses. But a pretty nice drill press overall. Let me move Shopzilla here. Every shop has got to have a mascot, and this happens to be a toy of my kids from way back when. They're like 35 now. So one day I came down here, he had a piece of wood. I don't know really what happened there, but the point is this is a variable speed drill press. Probably more of the modern drill presses today have a variable speed drive on them, and they get away from all the pulleys. But I think this will go from like 540 RPMs to 3,000 RPMs. So pretty much you can dial it in, to any speed that you need. If you're drilling through hardwood or softwood or metals, items like that. It has a really nice adjustable stop here. So if you're trying to do just fixed depth type cuts, you just can adjust these screws here. It's got a really nice adjustable table on it, so you can go high and low on it and really drill some long items if you need to do that. And it is heavy. Again, nothing comes light when you're talking about workshop type stuff. So lift with your legs. Of course, dust collection. I guess as you look around in here, people that I bring down into my shop will say, well, do you ever use this shop? And actually, I use this shop every day. And, when I'm doing woodworking type projects, yeah, it gets a little dusty out here. You'll see a little residual dust. But along the baseboards, you'll see that I put in a 3 or 4 inch PVC pipe, along with some various blast gates along. You can see one over by my table saw there where it connects up. So it allows me to focus the suction, if you will, I guess, to the device that I'm using. This one here on the left goes to my planer, the one on the right, and then I have one on each port for that as well. So that kind of really helps keep the dust down in the shop. One tool that I'm looking to probably add soon is a more fine particulate type air filtration system to hang somewhere. I've got pretty low ceiling. This house was built in 1957. So, they weren't tall people back in 1957, so they didn't, I'm only 5'10", maybe I'm shrinking. But as you can see, I got limited height. So the point with this is I want to get a better dust filtration system just to kind of save my life, maybe for a couple more years longer. But this really does a pretty good job. It's a Grizzly. I think it's 1300 CFM, cubic feet per minute air. And I would have to say that of all the tools I got in my shop, this one sucks the most. So, bad woodworking joke, but that's what I always tell people anyway. So, you'll see a variety of other tools, hanging on the walls here. Of course, safety first. A friend of mine just gave me that first aid station, so haven't had to use it yet, But these are all my original fingers. Nice dovetail jig, and maybe sometime down the road. Are dovetails necessary? Probably not, not with glue and other connection methods, but I kind of like it from the Craftsman perspective. Some people cut dovetails by hand. I'm not that good. I'm just a guy with an opinion, remember, and a bunch of tools. Of course, clamps. This is not enough clamps. So if I could have a whole room full of clamps, I would still need one more clamp. And I think a majority of you that are out there in the woodworking world probably know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you ever, as a rule of thumb, if you ever see a clamp, buy it, right? Because you can never have enough of those. Moving on. Okay, sound like a broken record, but this lathe, I got it maybe about a year ago now. and I fired it up and I played with it a little bit. Again, another Craigslist find. Actually, on the drill press, kind of a funny story on that is, you know, when you talk about some of these websites and you're going to somebody's house that you don't know, you know, you always wonder if they're going to be a mass murderer or something like that. So I'm on my way to get this drill press in a town close to where I live. And I have the guy's number and I'm texting him, you know, he's sending me his directions. And, you know, everything seems to be legit. And it was, I got it, right? But on the way there, I texted my wife the address of where I was going. And I said, in case I don't come home, you know, here's the address where I'm going to be. Or in case, I forget if I said, in case I'm murdered and I don't come home, something like that. And I'm not making fun of murder, but it's kind of a funny story. So my wife replies, or so I thought it was, my wife replies with question marks. It's like, question marks? What don't you get? Well, it turns out I texted that to the guy who I bought the drill press from. So kind of funny, you know, here I was making a comment about being abducted and, you know, done away with by some guy I was going to buy something from, but yet I texted that to him instead of my wife. So be careful who you text to anyway. So anyway, just a little side story there. But again, wood lathe. This is 12 inch, so meaning that 6 inches from the center line down, it could do something 12 inches in diameter. It's got a really long, you know, fence or whatever you want to call it on there. I really haven't had a chance to make anything with it yet. I've been trying to think of a project. It came with this really nice chuck. It came with a nice, you know, turning base. Came with a nice drill chuck that you could use. So it was actually another really good find. It even came with the wood table. And that table is as heavy as this tool is. Again, anything made from die-cast metal is extremely heavy. So maybe, you know, down the road here we'll figure out some project to do there. This beauty is my router table. Kind of homemade. A lot of this wood that you see on these bases and some of my other storage shelves over there came out of my garage. It was from an old cabinet, but it was some of the first iterations of these laminates were extremely heavy. So I doubled it up and made a nice fence out of it. I invested in a nice Incra lift table with a nice 3.5 horsepower motor from Porter Cable. You know, there are some things about it that I don't like that I'd like to redo sometime, but I built my own, you know, cut my own pieces for, you know, the fencing and the guides. I built my own fence out of some Baltic plywood, which works pretty well. You know, you could buy an aluminum extruded fence, which I see a lot of guys have, but this one seemed to work out pretty good. I never did document any of that, so, but it's just kind of ad-lib kind of design on that. Then working our way over to probably one of the latter pieces of tools that I really use a lot is this rigid belt sanding table. And actually, it can be, it's almost like a hand belt sander turned on its side. Works great if you just want to, shorten something up real quick or come in real handy. Again, I see a lot of shops out there that have a lot of these tools in them. So I think I made a good buy on that. It can also be just a spindle where you could take this unit off and it'll just have a single spindle like these in it, so you can do holes and things like that. So again, really like that tool. Again, rigid. I don't see many of these in Home Depot anymore, so I'm not sure how much rigid still does as far as power tools goes. You see the brand I think still exists, but I don't see some of these things as often as I used to anyway. So this kind of wraps up a majority of the major pieces of equipment. I'm sure you see a lot of things in the background. Just again, stuff that I've accumulated over the years. On the wall behind the camera guy, Steve, we'll call him Steve. Steve's slinging the camera. He's going to be the key grip today. It's just, you know, I had needed again to optimize space in the shop. So hung up some pegboard. A lot of these are just simple tools that, you know, probably you find in most shops. Some spare blades, blah, 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 files. A lot of wood storage that's in a little bit of disarray. There's always improvements to be had. So we started before here with, you know, shooting across my work table. And, you know, somebody, I had posted a picture of my shop on some forum on Reddit or something like that. And somebody said, oh, the stories this table could tell, you know, because this table's been around a while. It's been through all my garage shops and everything. I you know, I don't know why I keep it, but it's kind of one of those sentimental things. It was an old kitchen table, I think, at some point. But, you know, going forward, some of my projects, one of them is going to be to redo my workspace, probably recreate this table. It'll be tough to get rid of this, but some of these things that you build in your shop, you just kind of become emotionally attached to them. Likewise, you know, some of these, you know, workspace is kind of at a premium in my shop. These tops on here are just old doors. And the nice thing about buying a house from 1957 is the doors were actually pretty hardcore. I mean, they are kind of like the first iteration of what you call a hollow core door, but they still weigh 50 pounds a piece. I mean, they're still, when they built, you know, hollow core doors back in that day, they used hardwood on the honeycomb stuff that was inside. Even though it was filler, it was still heavy. So these, even though they look like small doors, they still got a little bit of weight to them. So you can still mount vices to them. But the plan is to maybe build my own maple tops. But as, you know, things have happened with the pandemic and wood has gotten expensive, that project is going to be on hold for a little while. But it is something that probably is going to be coming sooner than later. The rest is just normal shop storage type stuff. I could probably do a better job of organizing things, because if I ever want to go find something, I can't remember where I put it. Even though it looks somewhat organized, it's still a little bit of a challenge to remember where I actually filed it anyway. So, well, you know, when you think about you know, woodworking and woodworking as a hobby, you know, a lot of people ask me, you know, how I ever got started in it. It probably comes down to, I can remember specifically in, I think it was 7th grade or 8th grade, they put a wood shop into our junior high school in the town I grew up in. And this particular cutting board I actually made in 8th grade. And I got it when my mother passed away a few years ago. She still had it at her house. And still, I don't know how we didn't die, because I think I used like just regular varnish, or shellac as we called it back in the day. It wasn't a food grade glue. It wasn't food grade. You didn't oil it. But, you know, it's kind of an interesting piece. It goes back over 40 years now. So I came across that and I thought it was kind of a cool thing. But I think about, you know, making that in a wood shop class with, I think it was Mr. Thompson. I don't remember. I think he was like, you know, those guys had they were the driving instructor. They were the gym teacher. They were the shop teacher. So, but he, I don't know that he personally inspired me. I would say he probably did. But having the shop in school, now I think it's commonplace. But that's kind of what my story is and how I got started. And, you know, I had siblings older than me that, you know, had houses and things like that kind of inspired me to kind of just make my own stuff. But, you know, my motto is, and I'm going to kind of leave you with this, because that's kind of the shop tour for today, and I want to cut it relatively short. But, my motto's always been, why buy something, when you can make it yourself, especially when you can have it take 3 times as long to get, and cost you 4 times as much to make. But where's the fun in that if you don't, roll your sleeves up and make something yourself? So we need to get back to making instead of buying. And so I encourage all you guys to get out there, start accumulating some of this stuff on your own, create your own shop. So with that, I think we'll wrap it up today. Be watching for future videos coming down the road. Please, if you like this video, subscribe, like it. Tell your mother, your dog, your parents, whoever. I could use the subscribers to keep this thing alive. And I look forward to coming back again. So thanks again. And until next time, we'll see you later.